Hello, 8th graders. This is Teacher Monica welcoming you to Quarter 4 lessons. This video lesson was designed and written with you in mind. It is here to help you master how to define and illustrate probability, experiment, outcome, sample space and point, count the number of occurrences of an outcome using the tree diagram, tables, systematic listing, and basic counting principle. So the lesson 1 was already discussed in our previous video lesson. So this video lesson will focus on the topics about counting the number of occurrences of an outcome in an experiment and present that using the table, tree diagram, systematic listing, and fundamental counting. Okay, let us discuss the ways on how to count the number of occurrences of an outcome in an experiment using a table, tree diagram, systematic listing, and fundamental counting. Okay, let us take this example. The problem says that we are going to find the possible outcomes of tossing a coin and a rolling die. So, we are going to find the possible outcomes using the table. So, we have here our table. On the first row, we have the numbers 1 to 6, and this represents the possible outcome if the die is being rolled. Since we have 6 faces of a die, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the possible outcomes of rolling a die. In the first column, we have here head and tail. So these are also the possible outcomes of tossing a coin. So in the problem, it says that we are going to find the possible outcomes of tossing a coin and rolling a die, and that is to be done simultaneously. So how are we going to find the possible outcomes, or what are the possible outcomes? So ito pong gagawin natin. So we are just going to pair yung isang possible outcome if we are going to toss a coin and isang possible outcome if we are going to roll a die. So halimbawa sa unang try natin in our experiment. Sa unang try natin, ang lumabas ay head sa coin and then sa die ang lumabas ay 1. So the possible outcome will be H1 or head 1. Next try, possible na lalabas is head pa rin, and then sa die, ang lalabas is 2. So we have H2 or head 2. If we are going to try again, so the next possible outcome will be head and 3. Next will be head and 4. Head and 5. Head and 6. So, halimbawa, pag next try natin, ang lumabas naman ay tail in the tossing of a coin. And then sa pag-roll natin ng die, the same ang lumabas na 1. So, we can have the possible outcome will be T1 or tail 1. Next try, possible outcome will be tail and 2. Next try, possible outcome will be T3 or tail and 3. Next try, possible outcome will be tail and 4 or T4. Next try, possible outcome will be tail 5 or T5. And next try, possible outcome will be tail 6 or T6. So, itong H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, and T6. So these are the possible outcomes if we are going to toss a coin and roll a die simultaneously. So, how are we going to find the possible outcomes? Ilan ang possible outcomes dito? So, we are going to list all the possible outcomes. So, saan natin kukunin ang mga possible outcomes? So, ito siya. So these are the possible outcomes. So since lahat yan ay possible outcomes niya, we are going to list that down. Lahat po yan. So we have S that represents sample space or denotes sample space. So S is equal to H1, H2 hanggang T6, yung nasa table. Those are the possible outcomes. So kapag inilista mo yun lahat-lahat ng possible outcomes, ang tawag natin dyan ay sample space. So alin dyan ngayon ang ating final answer? So the final answer is 12 possible outcomes. That is the answer to our problem. Since our problem says that we're going to find the possible outcomes of tossing a coin and rolling a die. So our final answer will be 12 possible outcomes. Saan po galing ang 12 possible outcomes? We are just going to count lahat ng possible outcomes listed on the table. So in this problem, the possible outcomes of tossing a coin and rolling a die is 12 possible outcomes. Now let us try finding the possible outcomes of tossing a coin and rolling a die by using the tree diagram. So we are going to list muna the possible outcomes of tossing a coin and the possible outcomes of rolling a die. So, sa first try natin, say for example, ang lumabas sa tossing a coin is head. And then sa die, ang lumabas ay 1. So, we are going to record that 1. So, we have H1 or head 1. Next try, head pa rin ang lumabas. Then sa die, 2 ang lumabas, ang outcome niya. So if you are going to record that, that will be H2 or head 2. Next try, possible outcome, posibleng head pa rin. Then sa die, ang lumabas ay 3. So if you are going to record that, we have H3. Next try, possible outcome sa tossing a coin is still head, pero yung rolling a die, 4 ang lumabas. So we are going to record that is H4. The next possible outcome, still head. Then ang die, ang lumabas is 5. So if you are going to record, we have H5. Next try, head pa rin. Then sa possible outcome of rolling a die, 6 na ang lumabas. So try to record that one, that is H6. Next try natin of tossing a coin, ang lumabas ay tail or T. Then, sa pag-roll natin sa die, again, ang lumabas is 1. So, record it. We have T1. Next try, tail. And then, sa die, we have 2. So, record it. We have T2. Next try, tail pa rin. Then, sa die ay 3. So, we have T3. Next try, steal. Tail pa rin, pero dun sa die is 4. So, we have T4. Next try natin is tail pa rin, pero sa die is 5. So, we have T5. And then, next try natin is tail pa rin, then ang lumabas is 6. So, we have T6. Okay. Now, we have here the recorded outcome or the possible outcomes kapag we are going to roll a die and then toss a coin simultaneously. So, these are what we call the sample space. So, ito ay lahat ng outcomes. Lahat na outcomes ng experiment natin. So, ang tawag dito ay sample space. So, if we are going to denote that, so we have here S or sample space is equal to H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, H7, H6, T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, and T6. So, lahat po yan ay sample space na tinatawag. Dahil kapag sinabi nating sample space, again, it is the list of all the possible outcomes. Ito ay isang possible outcome, ito ay isang possible outcome, ito ay isang possible outcome, hanggang T6. Si T6 ay isang possible outcome. So kapag ilista natin silang lahat, ang tawag natin sa lahat ng possible outcomes na yan ay sample space. So, paano natin hanapin kung ilang possible outcomes ang lalabas? If we are going to toss a coin, at the same time roll the die. So you are just going to count ilan lahat ang possible outcomes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there are 12 possible outcomes. Doon kanina sa table, 12 din ang possible outcomes. Dito, using the tree diagram, 12 pa rin ang possible outcomes. Bakit pareho silang 12 possible outcomes? Because we are dealing with the same problem. Iba lang ang paraan natin dito ngayon, tree diagram. Doon kanina is using the table. Ito is using the tree diagram. So, different way, pero we have the same answer because we are dealing with the same problem. Okay, using the same problem, let us try to find the possible outcomes of rolling a die and tossing a coin using the systematic listing. In the systematic listing, of course, we're just going to list down. So say for example, tossing a coin, what are the possible outcomes? You are just going to list it down. So we have head and tail. So these are the two possible outcomes if we are going to toss a coin. And for rolling a die, just list all the possible outcomes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, in finding the sample space, you're just going to pair the possible outcomes simultaneously. So we have head and 1. So one possible outcome is H1. Next try, possible outcome will be head and 2. So we have H2. So you're going to record all the possible outcomes. Next try, possible outcome will be head 3. Next, we have possible outcome is head and 4. Next try, possible outcome will be head 5 or H5. And next possible outcome will be H6 or head 6. And then, another possible outcome, if we are going to toss a coin, ang lalabas ay tail. And in rolling a die, same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So just list down all the possible outcomes if we are going to do the experiment. So we have tail 1, tail 2, tail 3, tail 4, tail 5, and tail 6. So these are the possible outcomes. So we are going to list it down. Lahat na yan, possible outcomes na yan, ang tawag natin ay sample space. So in finding the possible outcomes, we are just going to count it all. Ilan lahat? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there are 12 possible outcomes. So same pa rin ang answer because we are still dealing with the same problem. So ibang way lang ang ginamit na pan natin dito, and that is systematic listing. So again, pag systematic listing, you're just going to list down the possible outcomes ng bawat experiment. Okay? Okay, next, we are going to find the possible outcomes of tossing a coin and rolling a die using the fundamental counting principle. So, sa fundamental counting principle, it says that the total number of outcomes of experiment 1 followed by experiment 2 can be found by multiplying the number of ways each experiment can happen. So, we have tossing a coin. it has two possible outcomes, the head or the tail. So, dalawa yung kanyang possible outcomes. And in rolling a die, there are 6 possible outcomes. So, in finding the possible outcomes applying the fundamental counting principle, ang gagawin lang daw natin is we are going to multiply the number of ways each experiment can happen. So, the two experiments together, tossing a coin, then rolling a die, have 2 times 6 equals 12 possible outcomes. So, saan galing yung 2? Ang 2 ay possible outcome of the first experiment, and 6 is the possible outcomes of the second experiment, which is the rolling of a die. So, 2, i-multiply natin ang mga possible outcomes, 2. Then sa rolling a die, we have 6. So there are 12 possible outcomes. So the answer is 12 ways or 12 possible outcomes. So if you have noticed, same pa rin ang ating answer because we are still dealing with the same problem. So yung problem natin na tossing a coin and rolling a die, we found the possible number of outcomes applying the 4 ways using the table, the tree diagram, we have the fundamental counting principle, and the systematic learning. So, sa apat na paraan na yun, ay the same pa rin ang ating answer, which is 12 possible outcomes kasi the same pa rin yung problem na ating tinalakay. Okay, naintindihan po ba? Very good. So that ends our video lesson on counting the number of occurrences using the table, the tree diagram, systematic learning, and the fundamental or the basic counting principle. So I hope you have learned something. Good day.